Before we dive into the fiery political battle that unfolds here, let's pause on what the Speaker just said. He reminds the House of two anniversaries, one tragic, the 7/7 London bombings that shook Britain to its core, and another historic, the Magna Carta's 800-year milestone. Why start here? Because this contrast sets the stage. Remembrance of lives lost, and a reminder of rights and liberties promised centuries ago. This is the kind of framing politicians use to heighten the weight of what's coming. And trust me, what's coming is a barrage of accusations, failures, and political drama that you won't want to miss.
Shadow Leader of the House.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am not going to let this moment pass, and I'm sure no colleague would wish me to, without reminding everyone present again that this week marks the 20th anniversary of the 7/7 bombings, 7th of July 2005, in which 52 people were killed in 4 separate attacks, and 700 more were injured, many of them grievously. I know the whole House will want to join me in mourning the victims of these dreadful crimes and in sending all our best wishes to their families and loved ones. While we're on the subject of anniversaries, the House will need no reminding that 2025 is 760 years since Simon de Montfort convened the first representative parliament, and perhaps even more significantly that this year marks 800 years since the year 1225, when the charter we now know as Magna Carta was agreed as a statute, and indeed became the first of all our statutes. To that extent, it is 1225, Mr. Speaker, and not 1215 that should be recognised as the birth date of Magna Carta. Very pleased to hear that wide array of support from the House. Thank you. Important point, I thought, to put on the record. For this government, of course, the past week marks an anniversary of a somewhat less glorious and happy kind, its first full year in office. So as a House, it falls to us to ask, first of all, how has the government done? It would be right to focus, in the first place, on its shockingly negligent and abusive treatment of our Northern Ireland veterans. But that is the topic of a Westminster Hall debate next Monday, so let us focus on wider issues. Labour pledged to deliver the highest economic growth in the G7. In reality, UK growth has failed even to beat the G7 average. It promised to meet NHS waiting list targets for 92% of patients, but the current figure stands at 59.8%, just 1 percentage point better than a year ago. It vowed to smash the boats and the boat gangs, yet small boat migrant numbers are up almost 50% compared to this time last year. So, well, perhaps we can forget the pledges. How then is the UK economy actually doing? Well, we know that the OBR has cut its growth forecast to just 1%. Inflation is higher than a year ago. Unemployment stands at its highest for 4 years. And so diminished is the government standing in international markets that, as the Institute for Fiscal Studies recently pointed out, the UK now faces higher borrowing costs than almost all other comparable countries, 2 full percentage points higher than Germany and higher even than Greece and Italy. I'm afraid to say the government has stored up more pain to come. The junior doctors have now voted in favour of further strikes through the autumn and into the new year. They had a 22% increase last year, the House will recall, and are now looking to their Labour brothers and sisters for a scarcely believable further 29%. And that's before you include their pensions. As the wildly overrated Aneurin Bevan said he had done in 1948, the present Secretary of State, and I'm quoting Bevan's words in relation to the GPs in 1948, that he had stuffed their mouths with gold, and they are already coming back for more. And what's the media reaction been to all this, Mr. Speaker? Well, internationally, The Economist described the Prime Minister's first year as wasted. Time called it a catalogue of errors. The normally sympathetic New York Times commented that Britain's Prime Minister is fading away before our eyes. Even supportive British newspapers have not been able to disguise their dismay. The Financial Times has bewailed Labour's drift, The Guardian its lack of vision. Not my words, Mr. Speaker, but those of some of the most respected newspapers in the world. But finally, we can ask, what do the poor suffering public make of all this? We know what a laser focus 10 Downing Street keeps on the polls. It will not have escaped their notice that the Prime Minister's approval rating is now at minus 35%. No government in recent times has ever lost public support after an election faster than this one. How mortified the Prime Minister must be to be wrenched back almost weekly from the perfumed chancelleries of Europe to the grimmer realities of domestic politics. Mr. Speaker, we need not dwell on the pieties and pomposities of Labour's pronouncements about stability and trust before the July 2024 election. These are the facts, they speak for themselves, and they say only this: must do better, a lot better.
Well done. Leader.
Here's where the gloves come off. The shadow leader isn't just criticising, he's methodically dismantling Labour's record, point by point. First, the economy. Promises of G7 leading growth reduced to barely 1%. Then the NHS waiting lists nowhere near target, and junior doctors demanding another staggering 29% increase after last year's settlement. And finally, he brings out the big guns. International media ridicule, with even allies like the New York Times calling the Prime Minister a fading figure. Notice the strategy. It's not just domestic failures, it's the humiliation of Britain on the global stage. Now let me ask you, do you think these criticisms are justified, or is this political theatre at its sharpest? Drop your thoughts below, because this is where the debate gets heated.
Sorry. Sorry, Mr. Speaker, just lost my opening page there. Sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I first of all join the Shadow Leader in marking the 20th anniversary of the 7/7 bombing, a day I think we all remember well, and I'm sure the whole House wants to remember all those who died and actually all those who survived and all those who were affected by it. And can I also just take this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to welcome the newly announced new director of the ICGS, the highly qualified Miriam Minty, who will be starting in September. As the Shadow Leader said, this week we've welcomed the French President's state visit to the UK. And I have to say, Mr. Speaker, I thought his address to both houses on Tuesday was excellent and historic. And can I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and your team and all those involved in organising it. I thought it underlined the deep and enduring relationship between our two great countries. The visit concludes today with a summit, and I will ensure the House is updated, Mr. Speaker, at the earliest opportunity on any agreements that we come to as part of that. I have to say, I mean, it is a bit galling week in, week out, but the Honourable Gentleman raises the proposed strike action by the doctors, which of course is extremely disappointing, and strike action that we don't think is at all necessary, because when the NHS is finally moving in the right direction, these strikes will put that recovery at risk, affecting patients and letting down our collective obligations to those that we're here to serve. We have delivered a very generous pay settlement, but we are keen to work constructively, and the door of the Secretary of State remains open, and he'll be in the House shortly. But this is a very different approach to what the Conservative left does, Mr. Speaker. They left the NHS on its knees, waiting lists at a record high, over 500,000 appointments and operations cancelled due to strike action in just 1 year. And it wasn't just the doctors. The rail strikes cost the economy over £1 billion. The teachers' strike lost 600 teaching days in 1 year. And they went to war with public sector workers week in, week out. I did notice, though, Mr. Speaker, that the Leader of the Opposition today is giving a speech talking about the ticking time bomb that's been left. Too right. It's a ticking time bomb. It's their ticking time bomb, and we all know that they left mines all over the place, and we're coming along having to sweep them out. And it gives me the opportunity. He wants to know about how our first year in office is going. I'm happy to tell him, Mr. Speaker, because You know, we promised 2 million extra NHS appointments and we've delivered 1 million more than that. We said we'd get waiting lists down and they're coming down month on month. Interest rates are coming down and net migration is coming down from a record high that they left it. We've secured 3 trade deals they once hailed but never delivered, and we've got them going. We've created nearly 400,000 new jobs since the election. We've recruited an extra 3,000 new police officers. We've built nearly 200,000 new homes, established Great British Energy, extended the warm home discount to 6 million more households, expanded free school meals for 500,000 more children, opened free breakfast clubs. We've banned water bosses' bonuses who've been polluting our rivers, and wages grew more in our first 10 months in office than they did in their last 10 years of office. I'm happy to debate him any time on our record, Mr. Speaker, so thank him for that opportunity to do that today. But I do have to feel slightly sorry for the shadow leader coming here week in, week out, when it's just going from bad to worse for the Conservative Party, isn't it? Perhaps that's why he has to go so into deep history as part of his speeches, because he doesn't want to talk about recent history. But he's one of the first up this morning after a big defection overnight, let's be honest, the latest in a long line of those fleeing the sinking ship. And I mean, I wouldn't have put Jake Berry, you know, best friend of Boris Johnson and former chair of the Conservative Party, I wouldn't put him down as a likely defector, actually. I mean, it really is that bad for them, isn't it? But I couldn't have put it better myself than what Jake had to say about it. And I'll give a little quote to the House, if you like. We've got a Conservative Party that doesn't seem to know what it stands for anymore. They've lost their way. They've abandoned their principles. They've abandoned the British people. I mean, he's right, isn't he, Mr. Speaker? But having said that, you know, I think we can't pass this by. This defection doesn't make up for what's actually been a terrible week for the Reform Party either, especially when it comes to HR matters, shall we say. The bigger story for Reform this week is they really are becoming the party of sleaze and scandal and dud and dodgy personnel. It's not really the right moment, I don't think, to start ditching your vetting procedures, don't you think, Mr. Speaker? And even though they've only got a group of a handful of MPs, their chief whip seems to have had a busier week than ours. I mean, and that's kind of saying something. But I'm not sure if the Reform Party will welcome our partnership with the French on tackling the small boats this week. But when it comes to their own party, Mr. Speaker, they're already really enthusiastically implementing a policy of one in, one out.
And there you have it, an explosive session that began with solemn remembrance and ended in pure political theatre. The shadow leader blasted Labour's record as a catalogue of errors, hitting them on growth, strikes and credibility abroad. But the government fought back, not just defending its record with claims of new jobs, trade deals and housing, but turning the spotlight onto its rivals, the Conservatives in disarray, defections rocking the party, and the Reform Party mired in sleaze. What does this all mean? Britain's political stage isn't just about policy, it's about perception, power struggles and who can control the narrative. The Magna Carta anniversary reminded us of where democracy began. Today's debate showed us how messy democracy can look 800 years later. So what do you think? Who came out stronger in this clash? Was this a fair debate or just mudslinging? If you found this case as shocking as we did, make sure to hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more jaw-dropping courtroom breakdown.